I thought my bestie was dating the school player, but the truth was much darker. My best friend Svetlana was the definition of a human dandelion. She still thought having sex was just kissing with tongue, and kept a box of every birthday card anyone had ever given her. So when she started going out with Armani, every bone in my body started vibrating like police sirens. Armani was a certified F-boy. Football captain, jaw that could cut glass, and a dating history longer than a CVS receipt. Since freshman year, he'd gone through girls like they were seasonal drinks at Starbucks. 2 weeks with Sasha, 3 with Caitlin, a record month with some sophomore whose name I never learned. I cornered Svetlana by her locker the day after she told me. Svet, you know his reputation, right? One of his girlfriends, Candy, literally transferred schools after they broke up. She just smiled that innocent smile that made me want to grab her shoulders and shake her. I know what I'm doing. But she didn't. She couldn't. The worst part was how she stopped answering my texts. First it was delayed responses, hours instead of minutes. Then one-word answers. By day 3, nothing. Svetlana had never gone more than 4 hours without sending me some AI brain-rot Instagram reel or asking if her outfit matched. The silence felt wrong, like when the birds stopped chirping before a storm. That's when I grabbed her favorite boba and decided to check on her myself. But when her mom let me in, I found her curled up on the couch with Armani. She was surrounded by heating pads and flowers, watching Tangled while he rubbed her back. Bad cramps, she whispered. Armani didn't even look at me weird for barging in. Just asked if I wanted to join them. 2 weeks passed, then 3. They were still together, which was already breaking Armani's pattern, but something felt off. He walked her to every single class, even when it made him late for his own. He'd check her phone with her at lunch, always sitting where he could see the whole cafeteria. My gut kept screaming that this was controlling behavior, those red flags Wizard Liz warns you about. By month 2, I barely recognized my best friend, but not in the way I expected. Her grades went from B's to A's. She joined the debate team, something she'd been too scared to do for years. She was glowing, confident, even wore that dress she bought but never had the courage to wear. It didn't make sense. Toxic boyfriends don't make you bloom like that. I started investigating, catching Armani's exes between classes. He was perfect, Sasha said, looking confused by my questions. Like, too perfect. Opened doors, remembered everything. But it was like, he was there but not there, you know? Caitlin said the same thing. Sweet but distant. I'd started following them, I'm not proud of it. But I'd watch Armani at lunch, the way he'd constantly scan the room, always position himself between Svetlana and certain areas of the cafeteria, the way his whole body would tense when specific people walked by. He wasn't watching her. He was watching everyone else. Then came that Monday morning in month 3. Svetlana's seat in first period was empty. So was Armani's. After a week, the school said they'd both transferred but wouldn't give details. Her social media went dark. His did too. I went to her house after school, and her mom's face did this weird thing when she saw me. She's staying with relatives, she said quickly. But I'd known this family for 9 years. Svetlana's grandparents were dead, and her only aunt lived in Boston. We'd visited her last summer. I sat in my car for 20 minutes, hands shaking, trying to make sense of the lie. My brain kept spinning, so I drove to the Starbucks downtown, the one where Svetlana and I always went to study. That's when I saw Candy at a corner table, and when she saw me, her face went white. You're Svetlana's friend, she said. It wasn't a question. Please, I begged. Something happened to them and no one will tell me anything. Candy's hands shook around her coffee cup. Armani wasn't a player, she whispered. He was. Gosh, this sounds insane. He was protecting us. My brain short-circuited. What? I had this guy following me. He was 22 years old and would show up at my job, at school, everywhere. Armani found out somehow. He started dating me very publicly, walked me everywhere, made sure everyone knew I was his girl. The guy backed off. After 3 weeks, Armani staged this breakup. The stalker was gone by then. The room tilted. All of them? Every girl he dated was being harassed or stalked. He'd swoop in, be the perfect public boyfriend until the threat moved on, then let them dump him. He made himself look like the player so no one would figure out the pattern. I drove straight back to Svetlana's house and basically broke down her mom's door. What happened to Svetlana? Who was stalking her? Her mom crumbled. Her old gymnastics coach from middle school. He'd been sending messages, showing up places. Armani found out, tried his usual thing, and this time he actually fell in love. But this coach had connections. He threatened to get Armani expelled on fake assault charges, said he'd ruin both their futures. What happened to Svetlana? Who was stalking her? The coach, but... She paused, listening. Did you drive here? Yeah, why? Her face went white. What color is your car? Silver Honda. Why? There's a GPS tracker on it. He puts them on any car that comes to visit me. You've been leading him somewhere for the past hour. My legs go weak and I grab the car door handle to steady myself. The coach has been tracking me. Every place I went today, the Starbucks where I talked to Candy, the drive back here, he knows all of it. Svetlana's mom grabs my arm and pulls me toward the house. Her fingers dig into my skin as she practically drags me up the front steps. She keeps looking over her shoulder at the street, scanning for cars I don't recognize. We get inside and she slams the door, turning 3 different locks. Her hands shake so bad she can barely work the deadbolt. She runs to the windows and yanks the curtains closed, moving from room to room like she's done this 100 times before. I stand in the entryway, frozen, watching her rush around. She comes back and her face is pale, eyes red like she's been crying for weeks. She starts talking fast, words tumbling out. The coach has been everywhere for months. He showed up at the grocery store twice in 1 week, just standing in the produce section watching them shop. He was at Svetlana's doctor appointment, sitting in the parking lot when they came out. He follows them to the mall, to restaurants, always keeping just enough distance that it looks accidental. That's why they were so grateful when Armani figured it out and offered to help. The police told them there was nothing they could do because he hadn't actually threatened anyone or broken any laws. Just kept showing up in public places where he had every right to be. She sits down on the couch and puts her face in her hands. She tells me Armani approached them 6 weeks ago after a football game. He'd noticed the coach in the stands, watching Svetlana instead of the game. Armani recognized that look, that way of staring at someone. He'd seen it before with other girls he'd helped. He came to their house the next day and explained his whole protection strategy. How he dates girls publicly to make stalkers back off. How his player reputation gives him cover to cycle through girlfriends without anyone asking questions. Svetlana's parents agreed right away because they were desperate. The police said they needed proof of actual threats before they could do anything. Restraining orders are hard to get when someone hasn't made explicit threats. So Armani became Svetlana's very public boyfriend, walking her everywhere, making sure everyone at the school knew she was with him. The coach backed off for a few weeks. They thought maybe it was working. But then he started getting more aggressive instead of less. I feel sick to my stomach. All those weeks I spent investigating Armani, following them around, interrogating his exes. I thought I was protecting Svetlana from a controlling boyfriend. I was so sure I was right. Those red flags I kept seeing, the way he walked her to every class, the constant scanning of rooms, positioning himself between her and certain areas. None of it was controlling behavior. He was literally putting his body between my best friend and a dangerous stalker. Every single thing I flagged as toxic was actually protective. My detective work was completely backward. I was investigating the only person trying to keep Svetlana safe, while the actual threat was tracking cars and following them to doctor appointments. Svetlana's mom pulls out her phone and makes a call. She talks in quick, hushed sentences that I can barely hear. She keeps saying things like, "She's here now, and he knows, and we need to move faster." She hangs up and tells me people are coming, to stay away from the windows. 20 minutes pass. I sit on the couch, checking my phone obsessively like the coach might somehow contact me. Every car that drives past makes my heart jump. Then I hear the back door open and nearly scream. But it's Armani and another guy coming through the kitchen. Armani's face looks different from I've ever seen it. Not the smooth, confident football captain everyone knows. He looks serious and focused, moving through the house, checking every window lock, testing the doors. The other guy heads straight for me. Armani introduces him as Dorian, his best friend. Dorian asks for my car keys and I hand them over, my hands still shaking. He goes outside through the back door while Armani stays inside, positioned where he can see both the front and back of the house. Dorian comes back in less than 5 minutes. He holds up a small black device, maybe the size of a matchbox. "It's magnetic," he says, showing me how it was stuck up under my rear wheel well where I'd never see it. He pulls out his phone and scrolls through photos. 6 other trackers, all identical to mine. Different cars, different locations, but same device. The coach has been tracking every car that visits this house for 2 months, systematically monitoring anyone connected to Svetlana's life. My mom's car probably has one. My dad's truck, anyone who's come here to visit. Armani sits down across from me. His voice is calm, but I can see the tension in his shoulders. They were planning to move Svetlana and her mom this week. That's why they both suddenly transferred from the school. But now that I'm tagged too, they need to move faster. The coach knows someone's been asking questions. My investigation of Armani's exes, talking to Candy and the others, probably tipped him off that people were figuring things out. I ask where Svetlana is right now. Her mom says she's already at a secure location 2 hours away. Real relatives, not the made-up Boston aunt story. They sent her ahead yesterday when they noticed the coach's car parked on their street for 3 hours straight. The surveillance was getting more aggressive, more obvious. The Boston aunt lie was meant to throw off anyone who asked, including me. Better to have people think she was visiting family than to have them asking real questions. Armani leans forward, elbows on his knees. He explains his whole operation, and it's weird hearing him talk like this. Not like a high school senior, but like someone way older, way more experienced. He started doing this sophomore year after his older sister got stalked by an ex-boyfriend. The police couldn't do anything until the guy actually hurt her. Armani watched his sister fall apart, too scared to leave the house. That's when he figured out that public relationships provide protection, that restraining orders can't. If a girl has a very visible boyfriend, stalkers usually back off. They don't want confrontation or attention. And his player reputation, all those short relationships everyone gossips about, gives him perfect cover. He can cycle through girlfriends and nobody questions why they break up after a few weeks. Everyone just thinks he's a player who can't commit. He pulls out a notebook from his backpack. It's worn, pages filled with neat handwriting. 7 entries, 7 different girls. Each one has a name, details about who was stalking them, dates and timelines, how long the protection lasted before the threat moved on. Candy's entry shows her stalker gave up after 3 weeks of seeing Armani walk her everywhere. Another girl's abusive ex left town after 2 months when he realized Armani wasn't going away. Each entry has notes about what worked, what didn't, patterns he noticed. It's like a case file, detailed and organized. This isn't just some nice guy helping out. This is a full operation he's been running for 2 years. Dorian leans back in his chair and adds that he handles most of the behind-the-scenes stuff. He drives girls to safe locations when they need to leave quickly, watches parking lots during school to spot anyone suspicious, and keeps track of which football players can be trusted to cover for Armani when he needs to miss practice. The team knows something's going on, but nobody asks direct questions. They just back him up when he says he has to leave early or skip a team dinner. Even the coach gives Armani flexibility because Armani told him he's helping friends deal with family problems, which isn't technically a lie. Dorian shows me his phone with a spreadsheet tracking different threat levels and response times. He's got notes about which girls need daily check-ins versus weekly ones, which stalkers backed off completely versus which ones just went quiet temporarily. It's organized like a military operation, and these are just high school kids running it. I stare at the notebook again, at all those entries about girls I know from the school, and something clicks in my brain. Svetlana's whole transformation over the past 3 months, all that confidence I thought was weird, it wasn't her changing into someone new. She was finally becoming herself because she could stop being scared every single second. The debate team she joined, that took guts she didn't have when someone was following her home from the school. The dress she wore, the one that had been sitting in her closet for months, she could finally wear it without worrying about attracting the wrong kind of attention. Her grades went up because she could actually focus on homework instead of jumping every time her phone buzzed with another creepy message. I'd been watching her bloom and thinking it was suspicious when really it was just what happens when someone stops living in constant fear. She wasn't being controlled by Armani. She was protected, and that protection gave her space to be the person she actually wanted to be. All those red flags I thought I was seeing, the way he walked her everywhere and checked her surroundings, that wasn't him being possessive. That was him making sure the coach couldn't get near her. Armani's voice gets quieter when he talks about Svetlana specifically. He admits that this situation is different from all the others because he actually fell in love with her for real. Usually he keeps himself emotionally distant, treats the whole thing like a job where he's providing a service and then moving on. But with Svetlana, something changed. Maybe it was how genuinely sweet she is, or how she still saw good in people even after months of being harassed, or just the way she laughed at his stupid jokes during those first few days of fake dating. Whatever it was, he couldn't keep the walls up. And that's exactly why this situation got so dangerous, because the coach somehow figured out that Armani wasn't faking it this time. With the other girls, the stalkers would see Armani around for a few weeks and back off because they didn't want the confrontation or attention. But this coach realized Armani genuinely cared about Svetlana, which made him escalate instead of disappearing. He started making threats, following them more aggressively, because he saw Armani as real competition instead of just a temporary obstacle. Svetlana's mom gets up and grabs her laptop from the kitchen counter. Her hands shake as she opens it and pulls up an email folder. She turns the screen toward me, and I see dozens of messages from an account with the coach's name. The first few are from months ago, seemingly innocent questions about Svetlana's gymnastics training and whether she'd consider coming back to the gym. But they get progressively worse as I scroll down. He starts asking about her personal life, her friends, whether she's dating anyone. Then come the ones where he talks about seeing her around town, at the grocery store, at the mall, always with details about what she was wearing and who she was with. The most recent ones are pure threats. He says he knows Armani is just a high school kid who'll get bored and move on eventually. He threatens to file false assault charges against Armani, claims he has witnesses who'll say Armani attacked him. He says he'll get Armani expelled and ruin his chances at college football scholarships. The last email says he'll destroy both their futures unless Svetlana agrees to meet him alone to talk. That's when Svetlana's mom closes the laptop and explains they made the decision to have Svetlana disappear completely. The threats were getting too specific and too dangerous. Armani's family has a lawyer who's been documenting everything for weeks, taking screenshots, saving all the messages, photographing the coach's car when it shows up places. But stalking cases move slowly through the legal system. The police need enough evidence to prove a pattern, and even then, restraining orders aren't always effective. The lawyer says they're building a strong case, but it could take months before anything happens in court. The immediate priority is keeping Svetlana physically safe while the adults work on permanent legal solutions. So they sent her to relatives 2 hours away. Real ones this time, not the made-up Boston aunt story. She's staying with her mom's cousin who has a house with a security system and lives in a neighborhood where the coach wouldn't know to look. Armani turns to me and his face is serious. He says I have 2 choices now that I'm being tracked. I can go home and pretend I don't know anything, act totally normal, let the coach think his surveillance is still secret and working. That might be safer in some ways because he won't know I'm onto him. Or I can disappear too and help coordinate things from a safe location where the coach can't find me. Both options involve risk. If I stay visible and he figures out I know what's happening, that could make me a direct target. But if I disappear suddenly, he might panic and do something unpredictable. Armani says the choice is mine, but I need to decide fast because every minute my car sits in this driveway, the coach knows exactly where I am. Dorian jumps in with a third option I hadn't considered. He suggests we leave the tracker on my car but have someone else drive it around town on a totally normal route. His older brother could do it, just drive to the school, the library, maybe grab food at the usual places I go. That way the coach thinks he's still successfully monitoring my movements when really we're feeding him false information. It's risky because if the coach ever sees the car and realizes it's not me driving, he'll know we found the tracker. But it could buy us valuable time to coordinate with the police and get everyone on the same page. The coach would keep thinking he has the advantage when really we'd be one step ahead. We talk through the options for a few more minutes and decide I'll call in sick to the school tomorrow and stay with Dorian's family. They live across town in a neighborhood with a gate and security cameras on every house. My parents need to know what's happening, but we'll tell them tonight in person, not over the phone, just in case the coach has somehow tapped the lines. Armani says that sounds paranoid, but this guy has already shown he's got sophisticated surveillance capabilities with all those GPS trackers. Better to be overly cautious than to underestimate what he's capable of doing. Dorian texts his parents to let them know I'll be staying with them, and they respond immediately saying that's fine, they have a guest room ready. Apparently this isn't the first time they've helped hide someone from a stalker. Armani drives me home in his car while Dorian follows behind in mine, keeping the tracker active so it looks like I'm just going about my normal routine. We take a deliberately casual route, stopping at a gas station where Armani fills up his tank, and I run inside to grab a drink I don't actually want. Then we hit a drive-thru for fries neither of us are hungry for, making everything look as normal as possible. The whole time I'm scanning every parking lot for a dark blue sedan, which is what Armani described as the coach's car. Every blue car makes my heart jump. Every sedan that slows down near us makes me want to duck. I keep checking the side mirrors obsessively, trying to memorize license plates of cars that stay behind us too long. Armani notices me doing this and tells me to breathe, that the coach probably isn't actively following right now since he thinks the tracker is giving him all the information he needs. But I can't stop looking. At my house, Armani parks on the street and comes inside with me. Dorian pulls my car into the driveway like I normally would. My parents are in the living room watching TV and they look surprised to see Armani with me. My dad stands up immediately, probably ready to do the whole protective father thing, but Armani puts his hands up in a calm gesture and asks if we can all sit down because there's something important I need to tell them. My mom mutes the TV and they both sit on the couch looking concerned. I start explaining everything, about Svetlana's stalker, about Armani's protection operation, about the GPS tracker currently attached to my car in the driveway. My mom's face goes white when I get to the part about leading a stalker around town for the past hour without knowing it. She starts crying, reaching for my dad's hand. My dad immediately wants to call the police right now, pull out his phone and dial 911, but Armani stops him and explains why we need to coordinate this carefully through his family's lawyer who already knows the detective handling stalking cases. If we just call 911, we get random officers who don't know the situation, and that could spook the coach into doing something dangerous before we have all our evidence organized. My dad pulls out his phone and starts scrolling through contacts while my mom grabs my arm and steers me toward the stairs. She's moving fast, almost dragging me up to my room where she starts pulling clothes from my dresser and shoving them into my overnight bag. Her hands shake as she folds a sweater, then unfolds it, then just crumples it into the bag without folding at all. She keeps stopping to hug me, pressing her face against my hair and whispering sorry over and over even though none of this is her fault. I didn't notice either until an hour ago when I was literally leading a stalker around town without knowing it. We're all running on pure panic right now, trying to think clearly when our brains are screaming danger. My mom throws in my phone charger, toothbrush, the stuffed bear I've had since I was 6 that I definitely don't need, but she packs anyway. Downstairs, I hear my dad's voice getting louder as he explains the situation to someone on the phone, probably Armani's family lawyer. Every few seconds, he says the word tracker or stalker or immediate danger, and each word makes my stomach twist tighter. Armani appears in my doorway and asks if I need anything else, his eyes scanning my room like he's doing a mental inventory of what might be important. My mom asks him how long I'll need to stay away, and he says honestly he doesn't know, maybe a few days or maybe longer depending on what the detective finds. That's when it really hits me that I can't just go to the school tomorrow or hang out at Starbucks or do any normal thing until this coach is dealt with. My whole routine just exploded because some creep has been tracking my car. Within 40 minutes, there's a knock on our front door and my dad lets in this tall guy in a suit who introduces himself as Detective Brody Hansen. He has this calm energy that somehow makes everything feel slightly less terrifying, like he deals with situations this bad all the time and knows exactly what to do. He shakes my hand and sits down at our kitchen table, pulling out a notebook and asking me to walk him through everything that happened today. When I mention the coach's name, his whole face changes, going from professional neutral to genuinely angry for just a second before he controls it. He tells us he's worked 3 other cases involving complaints about this same coach over the past 5 years, but none of them had enough evidence to pursue charges. Girls reporting uncomfortable messages or him showing up places, but nothing concrete enough for a warrant. His voice gets tight when he says the system failed those girls, and he's not letting it fail again. This time we have physical evidence with the GPS trackers, written threats in those emails to Svetlana's family, and a clear pattern of escalating behavior toward multiple people. He stands up and asks to see my car, so we all go outside where Dorian is still sitting in the driveway keeping watch. Detective Hansen pulls out his phone and starts taking photos of the tracker from every angle, documenting exactly where it was placed and how it was attached. He explains that GPS tracking without consent is illegal in our state, which gives him grounds for immediate action rather than waiting around for more evidence. He carefully removes the tracker using gloves and seals it in a plastic evidence bag, then starts typing on his phone to begin the paperwork for a warrant to search the coach's property. He says we're building a strong case, but I need to stay somewhere safe while they investigate, because stalkers often escalate when they realize they're being exposed. The coach might not know yet that we found his tracker, but once police show up at his door, he'll know something changed. Detective Hansen looks directly at me when he says this next part, making sure I understand how serious it is. He tells me to go completely dark on social media, no posts or location tags or check-ins anywhere online. The coach has probably been monitoring all of Svetlana's friends' accounts, which is how he knew to track cars visiting her house. Any information I put online could tell him where I'm hiding or who I'm with. Before I leave with Dorian, Detective Hansen programs his number into my phone and tells me to call immediately if I see anything suspicious, or remember any detail that might be important. My parents walk me to Dorian's car, and my mom hugs me so tight I can barely breathe, making me promise to text her every few hours so she knows I'm okay. My dad shakes Dorian's hand and thanks him for helping, his voice cracking slightly on the last word. I slide into the passenger seat with my hastily packed bag, and we drive across town to Dorian's house, taking a random route that loops around unnecessarily just to make sure nobody's following us. The whole drive I'm composing a group text to my other close friends, trying to figure out how to explain why I'm suddenly unavailable without telling them the real reason. I finally settle on saying I'm staying with relatives for a family emergency, and I'll be offline for a few days. It sounds vague enough to be believable, but specific enough that people won't ask too many questions. I hit send and then turn off my location services, watching my little dot disappear from the map like I'm erasing myself from existence. Dorian's parents are waiting when we pull into their driveway, and they welcome me with this surprising calmness, like they've hosted scared teenagers before. His mom takes my bag and leads me upstairs to their guest room, which is bigger than my actual bedroom and has its own bathroom. She shows me where the towels are and tells me to help myself to anything in the kitchen, treating this like a normal sleepover instead of me hiding from a stalker. Dorian's dad gives me a tour of their security system, pointing out which doors and windows have sensors and showing me the panel by the front door where I can check if everything's armed. He explains that the system will chime if any entry point opens, and the alarm will go off if someone tries to force their way in. Then he adds, almost casually, that Dorian has been helping Armani with these protection operations for over a year, and they support it completely after learning what happened to Armani's sister. He doesn't elaborate on what happened to her, but his face goes dark when he mentions it, and I understand that whatever it was bad enough to make these parents help their teenage son run safety operations for stalking victims. That night, I lie in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, my brain replaying every single interaction with Svetlana over the past 3 months. All those times I thought Armani was being controlling, he was actually positioning himself between her and danger. When I thought he was checking her phone to monitor her messages, he was probably looking for threats from the coach. Every suspicious behavior I documented was actually protection, and I completely missed it because I was so focused on his player reputation. I was looking for the wrong pattern, seeing red flags that weren't there while missing the actual threat entirely. The guy I spent weeks investigating as a potential abuser was literally the hero of this story, and I was too stuck on surface-level assumptions to see it. I finally fall asleep around 3 in the morning and wake up to my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It's Detective Hansen calling to say they executed the search warrant at dawn and found way more than anyone expected. The coach had surveillance equipment, multiple GPS trackers still in packaging ready to use, and a disturbing collection of photos of Svetlana at various locations around town. Photos of her at the school, at the grocery store, at the gym, all printed out and organized in folders with dates and times written on them. Detective Hansen's voice sounds strained when he tells me they also found folders for Svetlana's mom, for Armani, and now for me, each containing photos neither of us knew were being taken. The level of obsession is way beyond what anyone expected, beyond casual stalking into something that feels dangerous and planned. They arrested the coach immediately on stalking and illegal surveillance charges, and he's being held without bail because the judge considered him a flight risk and danger to multiple people. Detective Hansen says this is actually good news because it means we have a strong case, but he warns that the coach's lawyer will probably try to minimize everything as concern for a former student or innocent interest in her gymnastics career. I spend the rest of the morning pacing Dorian's guest room, too wired to sit still, until Detective Hansen calls again to say I'm allowed to video call Svetlana. She's been getting updates from her mom, but she's desperate to talk to me directly, to hear my voice and know I'm actually okay. I open my laptop and dial her number, and the second her face appears on the screen, she starts crying. She's apologizing before I can even say hello, telling me she's so sorry for not warning me, for not telling me what was really happening. I apologize right back for suspecting Armani instead of trusting that she knew what she was doing, for investigating him like he was the threat when he was the only one trying to help. We're both talking over each other, both saying sorry, both crying, until finally we just sit there looking at each other through the screen with tears running down our faces. Svetlana wipes her eyes and starts explaining that she wanted to tell me so many times, but Armani insisted on keeping the circle small for safety reasons. The fewer people who knew the truth, the less chance of information leaking to the coach through casual conversation or social media posts. She hated lying to me, hated making up excuses for why she couldn't hang out, or why she was always with Armani, but she understood it was necessary to protect everyone involved. She says Armani made her promise not to tell anyone except her parents, because every additional person who knew increased the risk that the coach would figure out they were onto him. Svetlana takes a shaky breath on the screen and starts explaining how it began. The coach sent her a message on Instagram 6 months ago saying he saw her at the mall and wanted to know if she was still doing gymnastics. She thought it was nice that he remembered her, so she replied saying she quit after middle school. Then he started messaging more often, asking about school and friends and what she did on weekends. She didn't think much of it at first because he was just being friendly, but then his questions got more personal. He wanted to know if she had a boyfriend, what she wore to parties, if she ever went places alone. She stopped responding after that, but he didn't stop messaging. He sent paragraphs about how much he missed coaching her, how special she was, how he thought about her all the time. Her mom reported it to the police the first time he showed up at the grocery store where they were shopping. He acted surprised to see them, said he was just picking up milk, but Svetlana noticed he didn't have a cart or basket. 2 weeks later, he was at the library where she studied, sitting 3 tables away with a book he never opened. Her parents filed another police report, but the officer said the coach wasn't breaking any laws by being in public places. He never threatened her, never tried to touch her, just kept appearing wherever she went with these innocent explanations. Her dad started documenting everything with photos and timestamps, building a file that the police said wasn't enough for a restraining order. The coach always stayed just barely on the legal side of things, showing up but never approaching, watching but never speaking. The GPS trackers were the first clearly illegal thing he did, which is why Detective Hansen could finally arrest him instead of just taking another report that went nowhere. Armani's face appears on the screen next to Svetlana's, and I start talking before I can overthink it. I thank him for protecting my best friend when I was busy investigating him like he was the problem. He smiles and says my protective instinct was right, just aimed at the wrong person. He explains that his player reputation is something he built on purpose to provide cover for what he actually does. Girls can date him publicly without anyone questioning why and when they break up. Everyone blames him for being unable to commit. It works perfectly as long as nobody figures out the pattern, which is why he keeps the truth so quiet. He admits it does mean people assume the worst about his intentions, but that's a price he's willing to pay if it keeps people safe. Detective Hansen calls 3 days later with news that changes everything. 2 more of the coach's former students came forward after hearing about the arrest. One girl said he sent her messages for months after she graduated, always asking where she was and what she was doing. Another said he showed up at her college campus twice, claiming he was visiting someone else, but she knew he was lying. Detective Hansen says this establishes a clear pattern of predatory behavior toward multiple victims, which makes the case much stronger. The coach's lawyer is trying to negotiate a plea deal because going to trial would expose all of this publicly, and apparently the coach wants to avoid that. Detective Hansen sounds satisfied when he explains how the additional victims make it harder for the defense to claim this was just innocent concern for a former student. The school district launches their own investigation the same week. Someone on the school board wants to know how the coach maintained access to former students' contact information and why previous complaints weren't taken seriously. Svetlana's mom isn't the first parent who reported concerns about him. Turns out there were at least 4 other families who called the school over the years. The administrators dismissed them as overprotective, or said the parents were misunderstanding friendly interest in students' continued success. Now the district is facing potential liability for not acting sooner, and there are rumors they might settle with the families to avoid a lawsuit. My dad reads the news articles about it every morning, getting angrier each time he learns about another warning sign that was ignored. Detective Hansen calls again on day 5 to say I can go home. The coach is staying in custody, and they confirmed he has no known associates who might continue the surveillance. My parents pick me up from Dorian's house, and we stop at a security company on the way home. They install cameras at every door, sensors on all the windows, and a panic button system that connects directly to the police. My dad checks my car for trackers every single morning before I'm allowed to drive it, crawling underneath with a flashlight to examine every surface. We're all jumpy and paranoid, flinching at unexpected sounds, but at least we're safe in our own house. My mom keeps hugging me randomly throughout the day, like she needs to confirm I'm actually there. Svetlana and her mom come home 2 weeks later once Detective Hansen confirms the immediate threat is gone. I drive straight to her house the second I get the text, and we end up crying in her driveway before we even make it inside. Her mom cries too, and then we're all hugging in this big group on their front lawn. Armani shows up 10 minutes later and stands awkwardly to the side until Svetlana grabs his arm and pulls him into the hug. Her mom thanks him over and over, saying he kept her daughter safe when the police couldn't and the school wouldn't. She makes us all come inside for lunch, and we sit around their kitchen table like nothing bad ever happened, except everything feels different now. We're all more aware of how fragile safety actually is, how quickly normal life can be disrupted by one person's obsession. Going back to the school feels weird in ways I didn't expect. Rumors spread about why Svetlana and Armani suddenly left, and some people figured out the general situation even though we kept the specific details private. The football team treats Armani differently now, with this new respect that goes beyond his usual popularity. Several girls approach him quietly between classes to thank him for helping their friends in the past, and I realize how many people actually know what he does. The Whisper network is bigger than I thought, this whole informal system of girls who help each other and watch for threats. Nobody talks about it openly, but if you know what to look for, you can see it operating in the background of normal school life. Candy finds me at lunch on my 3rd day back and asks if Svetlana is okay. She sits down without waiting for an invitation and explains that Armani helped her 2 years ago when she was genuinely scared for her safety. She says she's been grateful ever since, checking in with other girls he's helped and making sure they're all supporting each other. There's an informal network now, she tells me, of everyone who knows the truth about what Armani does. They watch out for each other, share information about concerning behavior, and help new people who are dealing with stalking or harassment. It's like this secret support system running parallel to the official school structure that never seems to notice these problems until it's too late. The next day, I meet Mariah Silva in the library. She's a senior I recognize from debate team, and she approaches my table with this knowing look. She tells me her story about an abusive ex who wouldn't accept their breakup, who kept showing up at her house and sending threatening messages. Armani dated her publicly for a month until the ex finally moved on to harassing someone else. She says Armani never asked for anything in return, never told anyone what he was really doing, just quietly helped and then let her dump him to maintain his player image. She wanted me to know because she heard I was investigating him before all this happened, and she wants me to understand how many people he's actually protected. She pulls out her phone and shows me a group chat with 7 other girls, all of them sharing updates and looking out for each other. I'm added to the chat before I leave the library, suddenly part of this network I never knew existed. Over the next week, I pieced together the full picture from talking to more girls in that group chat. Armani started this whole thing sophomore year after watching his older sister deal with a stalker who made her life miserable for months. He realized that having a visible public boyfriend made predators back off faster than restraining orders or police reports. So he started paying attention to girls who seemed scared or who were being followed, and he'd approach them with an offer to help. The system was simple but smart. He'd ask the girl out very publicly, make sure everyone at the school knew they were dating, walk her everywhere, and basically become her shadow until the threat disappeared. Then after a few weeks or months, she'd dump him in a dramatic way that made him look like the bad guy. Everyone would talk about how he got dumped again. His player reputation would grow, and nobody questioned why he moved on to the next girl so fast. The girls he helped knew the truth and stayed in touch with each other, forming this secret network of people who understood what he was really doing. Candy tells me he's helped at least 8 girls that she knows about, maybe more who never joined the group chat. Each situation was different, but the pattern was the same. Some girl was harassed or stalked. Armani would swoop in as the protective boyfriend. The threat would back off, and then he'd stage a breakup. He never asked for anything in return and never told anyone outside the situation what was really happening. The whole school thought he was this player who couldn't commit, when really he was running a one-person protection service using his popularity as cover. 3 days after I get added to the group chat, I get called to the counseling office during 3rd period. Kira Nelson, the school counselor, is waiting with this kind smile that makes me want to cry immediately. She asks me to sit down and then just waits, not pushing, until I'm ready to talk. I end up telling her everything about suspecting Armani, investigating him, finding out the truth, the whole mess with the coach and the GPS tracker. She listens without interrupting, and when I'm done, she says something that makes my chest feel less tight. She tells me my protective instinct towards Svetlana was completely healthy, even though I was wrong about where the danger was coming from. She explains that learning to trust your friend's judgment while also staying alert to potential threats is one of the hardest parts of growing up. I was trying to protect my best friend, and that impulse was right. I just misread the situation because I was looking at surface patterns instead of deeper truth. She validates all the fear and confusion I felt, helps me process the guilt about spending weeks suspecting someone who was actually a hero. By the end of our session, I feel like I can breathe properly again. Kira also tells me something that gives me hope for other students. The school is implementing new safety protocols for reporting concerning behavior from adults who have access to students. They're training all staff members to take stalking complaints seriously, instead of dismissing them as drama or overreaction. There will be clear procedures for investigating inappropriate contact between adults and students, and a designated person students can report to confidentially. She admits it's too late to help Svetlana proactively, but maybe it will protect future students from going through what she went through. The district is finally taking this seriously after the coach's arrest exposed how many warning signs they were ignored over the years. The legal stuff moves faster than I expected once Detective Hansen builds the case. Within a month, the coach is facing multiple charges for stalking, illegal surveillance, and harassment of minors. His lawyer knows they're screwed because the evidence is overwhelming. GPS trackers, threatening emails, photos of underage girls, surveillance equipment, everything documented and photographed by the police. So 3 months after his arrest, they negotiate a plea deal to avoid a trial. The coach admits to stalking and illegal surveillance in exchange for a lighter sentence. He gets 2 years in prison plus 5 years probation with mandatory counseling. Detective Hansen calls to tell us the outcome, and I can hear the frustration in his voice. It's not as much time as we wanted. Not nearly enough for what he put Svetlana and the other girls through. But Hansen explains that plea deals avoid the trauma of a trial, where Svetlana would have to testify and be cross-examined by defense lawyers, trying to make her look like she encouraged the attention. He says 2 years in prison plus the other consequences is actually a solid outcome that guarantees the coach faces real punishment without putting the victims through more trauma. Part of the plea deal requires him to surrender his teaching license permanently and register as a sex offender. He can never work with children again in any capacity and will have restrictions on where he can live and work for the rest of his life. Detective Hansen tells my parents that these consequences will follow him forever, making it much harder to target new victims. Every time he moves or changes jobs, he has to register with local police. His neighbors will be notified that a sex offender lives nearby. Future employers will see his record. It's not perfect, but it's something. A permanent mark that warns people about who he really is. Even with the coach in prison, Svetlana struggles hard with nightmares and anxiety. Her mom finds a therapist who specializes in stalking trauma, and Svetlana starts going twice a week. She tells me during one of our hangouts that the hardest part is rebuilding her sense of security in normal activities. Going to the grocery store without constantly checking over her shoulder. Walking to class without scanning every face to make sure he's not there. Getting in her car without checking for tracking devices. The fear got programmed into her brain during all those months of being watched and followed, and now her body reacts like he's still out there even though she knows he's locked up. Her therapist is teaching her techniques to manage the anxiety, and slowly she starts feeling safer. It takes months of work, but gradually the panic attacks become less frequent, and she can do normal teenage things without that constant background terror. She joins me and some other friends at the mall one Saturday, and halfway through she realizes she hasn't checked behind her in over an hour. She starts crying right there in the food court. Happy tears because it feels like maybe she's getting her life back. Armani and Svetlana's relationship shifts into something real and public in a totally different way, now that they don't have to hide the truth. They're openly together at the school, holding hands in the hallways, sitting together at lunch without him constantly scanning the cafeteria for threats. He's still protective, but in healthy ways, checking in with her about how she's feeling, making sure she's comfortable, respecting her boundaries. You can see them both relaxing into something genuine instead of a protection operation masking as a relationship. The hypervigilant scanning is gone, replaced by actual teenage couple stuff like arguing about which movie to see and stealing fries off each other's lunch trays. They're disgustingly cute together, and I'm happy for them, even though I give Svetlana crap about it. During lunch one day, I watched them laugh about something on his phone and realized this is what I wanted for her all along, just not in the way I expected. She's safe, happy, with someone who genuinely loves her, and proved he'd risk everything to protect her. I spend the next few weeks tracking down all of Armani's exes that I interrogated during my investigation. I find Sasha first, catching her after debate team practice. I apologize for the weird questions and explain that I was trying to protect Svetlana, but completely misread the situation. She laughs and says she thought it was sweet that I was so protective, that Svetlana is lucky to have a friend who pays that much attention. I find Caitlin at her locker and give her the same apology. She hugs me and says she wishes someone had been that protective of her when she needed it. One by one, I apologize to all the girls I questioned, explaining what was really happening and why I got it so wrong. They're all understanding, and several of them actually become my friends after that, bonded by this weird shared experience of knowing Armani's secret. We start hanging out as a group sometimes, this collection of girls who all got help when they needed it, and now look out for each other. Mariah organizes a group lunch where we all share our stories, and I realize how many different kinds of danger these girls faced. Stalkers, abusive exes, creepy older guys, harassment at work, all different situations, but the same pattern of someone making them feel unsafe. Armani helped each of them in slightly different ways depending on what they needed, always adapting his protection strategy to fit the specific threat. Dorian pulls me aside after school one day, and we end up sitting in his car in the parking lot while he explains his role in everything. He's been Armani's behind-the-scenes support for over a year, helping coordinate protection operations with technical skills Armani doesn't have. He's the one who taught himself how to find GPS trackers using radio frequency detectors. He maintains detailed documentation of each stalker's patterns, license plates, photos, anything that might be useful as evidence later. When girls need to move to safe locations, Dorian handles the logistics and transportation. He sets up secure communication channels and helps monitor social media for threats. He shows me his phone with all these apps and tools he uses to track potential dangers, and I'm genuinely impressed by how seriously these teenage guys take protecting their friends. Dorian admits it started as just helping his best friend, but became something bigger when he realized how many girls needed this kind of support. He tells me about setting up the group chat for all the girls Armani helped, creating a network where they could support each other and share information about new threats. The whole operation is way more organized than I realized, with backup plans and safety protocols and coordination between multiple people. My parents end up meeting Armani's parents at a school event a few weeks later, some fundraiser for the football team. I watch them talking in the corner of the gym and can tell from their body language that they're having a serious conversation. Later, my mom tells me that Armani's mom shared the story about their older daughter's stalking experience and how it motivated Armani to help other girls going through similar situations. She talked about being proud of him for wanting to protect people, but also terrified by the risks he takes putting himself between predators and their targets. My dad admits he judged Armani too quickly based on his player reputation, assuming he was bad news for Svetlana without looking deeper. The four parents end up bonding over their kids' unexpected heroism and the complete failure of systems that should protect young people. They exchange phone numbers and start coordinating on ways to push for better safety protocols at the school and in the community. My mom joins Svetlana's mom in advocating for the new reporting procedures Kira Nelson mentioned, and my dad starts working with Armani's dad on a presentation about recognizing stalking behavior that they want to give to parent groups. Watching the adults finally take this seriously feels validating, like maybe something good can come from everything that happened. The football season starts 3 weeks later, and the whole team shows up to the first game wearing purple ribbons pinned to their uniforms. Coach announces before kickoff that they're dedicating the season to raising awareness about stalking and harassment, and the crowd actually cheers louder for that than for the game itself. Armani organizes a fundraiser at halftime where they collect donations for a local organization that helps stalking victims, and by the end of the night, they've raised over $2,000. The team sets up a table in the parking lot with information about warning signs and resources for getting help, and I watch as several people stop to take pamphlets and ask questions. During the post-game celebration, Armani gives a short speech to the crowd about recognizing concerning behavior and believing people when they report harassment. He talks about how easy it is to dismiss warning signs as overreaction or drama, and how that dismissal can put people in real danger. His voice stays steady the whole time, even though I know this is hard for him to talk about publicly. The local news covers the fundraiser, and suddenly our school is getting attention for actually doing something positive about a serious issue, instead of just ignoring it. Svetlana texts me 2 days after the fundraiser asking if I want to volunteer with her at the organization the football team raised money for. They need people to answer hotline calls and help victims document evidence for police reports. I agree immediately because it feels like a way to turn everything that happened into something useful. We go through training together, learning how to listen without judgment, and what questions to ask to help people build strong cases. The first time I answer a call from someone whose ex keeps showing up at her work, my hands shake so bad I can barely write notes. Svetlana handles it better than I do, staying calm and methodical as she walks callers through documenting everything. She tells me later that hearing stories similar to what she went through actually helps her process her own experience, like she's taking back power by supporting others. We volunteer every Tuesday and Thursday evening, sitting in a small office with 2 phones and a database of local resources. Sometimes the calls are heartbreaking, people who've been dealing with stalkers for months or years with no help from police or family. Other times we get to connect someone with a detective who actually takes them seriously, or a lawyer who handles restraining orders. Svetlana says she wants to study this in college, maybe become a counselor who specializes in helping stalking victims. 3 months after the coach's arrest, the school holds its annual talent show and Svetlana signs up to perform. She doesn't tell me what she's planning until the night of the show when I see her name in the program listed for a gymnastics routine. My stomach drops because gymnastics is what the coach corrupted for her, the sport she loved that he turned into a source of fear. The auditorium lights dim and Svetlana walks out in a leotard she designed herself, purple to match the awareness ribbons. She performs a routine she choreographed without any coach input, just her and the music and her body doing what it was trained to do. Every flip and turn is perfect, controlled, powerful in a way that has nothing to do with anyone's approval but her own. The whole auditorium goes completely silent watching her reclaim something that was stolen. When she sticks her final landing, everyone jumps to their feet applauding. I'm crying so hard I can barely see, watching my best friend take back her sport, and her joy from someone who tried to ruin both. Armani is in the front row with tears running down his face too. Svetlana bows and smiles. Really smiles. In a way I haven't seen since before all of this started. College recruiters start showing up at football games to watch Armani play, and he's honest with every single one about his protection work and the time it required. I overhear him talking to a coach from a big state school, explaining that he spent significant time helping friends deal with safety issues and coordinating with police on stalking cases. Most coaches react with respect instead of concern, seeing it as evidence of leadership and character rather than a distraction from football. One coach from a private university tells Armani that kind of integrity and commitment to protecting others is exactly what they look for in student athletes. Armani gets offers from 6 different schools by November, and he spends weeks researching their criminal justice programs because he wants to study victim advocacy in college. He tells me he's done pretending to be just a football player, when what he really cares about is helping people stay safe. He ends up choosing a school 3 hours away that has both a strong football program and professors who specialize in stalking law and victim services. Svetlana gets accepted to a school in the same city with an excellent psychology program, and they're both planning to continue the protection work in college with better resources and legal support. The school newspaper editor asks me to write an article about recognizing stalking behavior after she hears about what happened. I spend 2 weeks working on it, writing and rewriting to get the tone right. I don't name anyone specifically, but I talk about how easy it is to miss warning signs or dismiss concerns as teenage drama when they're actually serious threats. I write about the difference between healthy protective behavior and actual control, and how important it is to ask questions when something feels wrong. I include a list of warning signs like repeated unwanted contact, showing up at multiple locations, and monitoring someone's activities without permission. The article runs in the December issue and gets shared on social media way more than I expected. Within a week, 4 different people reach out to me privately to share their own experiences with stalking or harassment. 2 of them are dealing with situations right now and need help connecting with resources. I forward their information to Detective Hansen and the Victim Advocacy Organization, feeling grateful that writing about this might actually help people get support before things escalate. Detective Hansen visits our school in January to give a presentation about stalking laws and what legally counts as harassment. The auditorium is packed with students and some parents who heard about the event. He uses the coach's case as an example without naming anyone, explaining how GPS tracking without consent is illegal and how repeatedly showing up at someone's locations crosses legal lines. He talks about how contacting minors inappropriately through social media or text messages can constitute harassment even if the messages seem friendly. Students ask really thoughtful questions about protecting themselves and what to do if they suspect a friend is being stalked. One girl raises her hand and asks why police don't take reports seriously until something violent happens, and Detective Hansen admits the system has major problems with dismissing early warning signs. He gives out his direct contact information and tells everyone that if they or someone they know needs help with a stalking situation, they should reach out immediately instead of waiting for it to get worse. The presentation gets added to the mandatory safety curriculum for all students and other schools in the district request copies to use in their own programs. The school district settles a lawsuit with Svetlana's family in February after months of negotiations. The settlement includes money to cover all her therapy costs and compensation for the trauma caused by the district's failure to act on previous complaints about the coach. More importantly, it requires the district to implement comprehensive safety training for all staff about recognizing and responding to stalking behavior. Svetlana's mom holds a press conference on the courthouse steps after signing the settlement papers, saying this was never about the money but about forcing systemic change, so other families don't go through what they did. She reads a statement about how many times she reported concerns to the school administrators, and how every single time she was told she was overreacting, or that the coach's behavior didn't warrant investigation. The superintendent has to stand there and listen, looking uncomfortable as reporters ask hard questions about why it took a criminal case for the district to take stalking seriously. The settlement money goes into a trust fund for Svetlana's college education and ongoing therapy, and her mom donates a portion to the victim advocacy organization that's been helping them. 6 months after everything started, our friend group looks completely different from it did before. All of Armani's former girlfriends now know each other's real stories, and we have regular hangouts at someone's house every other weekend. Candy brings snacks, Mariah always has new music to share, and we talk about everything from normal teenage stuff to serious discussions about safety and supporting each other. It's weird how trauma brought us together, but genuine friendship keeps us coming back. We create a group chat where we share information about concerning behavior we notice and check in when someone seems off. Dorian joins sometimes too, providing the male perspective and helping with practical stuff like finding GPS trackers or documenting evidence. The group becomes this unexpected community of people who understand what it's like to need protection and what it means to have someone actually provide it. We celebrate each other's wins like college acceptances and talent show performances, and we show up when someone's having a hard day dealing with anxiety or nightmares. None of us expected to become this close, but now I can't imagine not having these people in my life. Svetlana and I are sitting in my car after school one day when she tells me she's grateful for my initial suspicion of Armani. I start to apologize again for being so wrong, but she cuts me off. She says having a friend who cares enough to investigate and ask hard questions, even when wrong about the specific threat, made her feel less alone during the scariest time of her life. She explains that knowing I was paying attention and trying to protect her mattered more than whether I correctly identified the danger. We promise each other that we'll always trust each other's judgment, while also asking questions when something feels off, finding that balance between support and healthy skepticism. She admits there were moments she wanted to tell me the truth about the coach, but Armani insisted on keeping the circle small for safety. Now she wishes she'd trusted me sooner because maybe I could have helped gather evidence or notice things she missed. I tell her she made the best decisions she could with the information she had, and that's all any of us can do in scary situations. Armani quietly starts helping another girl in March whose ex-boyfriend won't leave her alone after their breakup. But this time everything is different, because he coordinates with Kira and Detective Hansen from the start, instead of working alone. The school counselor knows what's happening and monitors the situation through official channels. Detective Hansen has the ex-boyfriend on his radar and documents every violation of the girl's boundaries. Armani still does the public boyfriend thing to provide social protection, but now there's a whole system backing him up instead of him taking all the risk himself. The ex backs off within 2 weeks when he realizes the girl has serious support and that police are actually watching his behavior. The system is slowly learning to work with teenagers like Armani, instead of dismissing their concerns as drama or overreaction. It's not perfect yet, but it's progress. And that's more than we had 6 months ago, when everything started. A few weeks after that conversation with Armani about his continued protection work, Kira calls me into her office during lunch. She sits across from me with this thoughtful expression and asks how I'm processing everything that happened. I tell her honestly that I feel stupid for investigating the wrong person for so long, but she shakes her head. She says my instincts were actually correct. I just needed better tools to figure out what I was really seeing. She pulls out some college program information about criminal justice and victim advocacy. She explains that people who notice patterns and ask hard questions, even when they're wrong about specifics, make excellent investigators and advocates. The programs focus on helping people navigate systems that often fail them. I take the brochures home and actually read through them that night. Something clicks when I see course descriptions about stalking laws and victim support systems. Maybe all that detective work wasn't wasted, just misdirected toward the wrong target. My parents start checking in more after everything settles down, but it feels different from before. Mom texts me during the day asking how I'm doing, not demanding to know where I am, Dad makes time for actual conversations instead of just logistics about rides and schedules. One night at dinner, Dad puts down his fork and looks at me seriously. He apologizes for all the times he dismissed my concerns about friends or school situations as typical teenage drama. He admits he always thought adults knew better because we had more life experience. But he says this whole situation taught him that young people often see social dynamics that adults completely miss. We're closer to it, paying attention to details that seem unimportant to grown-ups. Mom adds that they're learning to trust my judgment more, even when they don't fully understand what I'm seeing. It's weird having parents who actually listen instead of just lecturing, but I'll take it. 18 months pass relatively quietly, with Svetlana making steady progress in therapy and all of us settling into new normal routines. Then one Tuesday afternoon, my phone buzzes with an alert from the victim notification system. The coach is being released to a halfway house. My stomach drops as I read the details. I immediately text Svetlana, but she doesn't respond for 20 minutes. When she finally calls, she's crying so hard I can barely understand her words. Her therapist is with her, talking her through a panic attack. I stay on the phone while her therapist uses breathing techniques to help her calm down. After about 15 minutes, Svetlana's voice steadies enough to talk. She says she knew this was coming, but seeing the actual notification made everything feel real and scary again. Detective Hansen calls her an hour later on a three-way with her mom. He explains in his calm, professional voice that the restraining order remains active regardless of the halfway house release. Any violation, even being in the same general area as Svetlana, sends the coach straight back to prison immediately. He's being monitored closely with regular check-ins and an ankle monitor tracking his location. Hansen promises to personally notify us if anything concerning happens. The next weekend, our whole group meets at Svetlana's house to organize a safety plan for when the coach eventually gets full release. Armani brings Dorian, I bring my parents, Svetlana's mom coordinates with Detective Hansen on video call. We go through everything systematically like we're planning a military operation. Updated security cameras get installed at both Svetlana's house and mine. We change up our regular routines so we're not predictable with schedules. Dorian sets up a group chat specifically for safety updates where anyone can report if they see anything suspicious. Detective Hansen adds that the coach's probation officer will be monitoring his internet activity and phone records, so any attempt to contact or research us gets flagged immediately. Kira joins the call to add that the school has protocols in place too, with security aware of the situation. It's not a perfect system because nothing can guarantee complete safety, but we're connected now in ways we weren't before. The community of people who know the full story genuinely has each other's backs. We're not just hoping systems protect us anymore, we're actively protecting ourselves. A full year after everything initially exploded, I watched Svetlana give a practice debate performance in Kira's office after school. She's captain of the debate team now, absolutely destroying her opponent's arguments with evidence and logic. Her grades have been straight A's for 3 semesters running. She's already got acceptance letters from 5 colleges, all with strong psychology programs. She wants to study trauma counseling to help other survivors navigate what she went through. After the practice session, we grab coffee at that same Starbucks where I first talked to Candy. Svetlana admits she still has hard days where the fear comes back unexpectedly. Sometimes she sees a car that looks like the coach's old sedan, and her heart starts racing. But those moments are becoming less frequent as she builds a life defined by more than what happened to her. She's reclaiming pieces of herself that got stolen, plus discovering new parts she didn't know existed. The girl who was too scared to try out for debate team is now leading it. The girl who thought intimacy was just kissing is now in a healthy relationship where she sets boundaries and communicates openly. She's not the same person she was before, but she's becoming someone stronger. Armani and Svetlana are still together, which honestly surprises everyone, including them. Their relationship shifted from protection necessity to genuine partnership somewhere along the way. They're planning to attend colleges in the same city next year, both pursuing careers focused on helping others. Armani got accepted to a criminal justice program with a full football scholarship. Svetlana's looking at psychology programs at schools within an hour of his campus. I watched them together at lunch one day and notice how different their dynamic is now. He's not constantly scanning the cafeteria anymore. She's not flinching when people walk up behind her. They're just two people who actually like each other, planning a future together. You can see real partnership and respect in how they interact. They survived a crisis that would have destroyed most relationships and came out stronger instead. Svetlana tells me privately that she's grateful the coach forced them together initially because she might never have gotten to know the real Armani otherwise. But she's even more grateful that they get to choose each other now instead of staying together out of fear or obligation. Spring semester brings a celebration dinner that Svetlana's mom organizes at their house. Our entire friend group shows up, plus all the people who helped keep everyone safe over the past year and a half. Armani's parents bring his sister who started the whole protection pattern. Dorian's family comes with homemade desserts. Detective Hansen arrives in casual clothes instead of his usual suit. Kira brings her partner. All the girls from Armani's informal protection network gather around the dining table that gets extended to maximum length. Svetlana's mom sets out enough food to feed 30 people even though there's only about 20 of us. She keeps wiping tears from her eyes as she looks around at everyone who showed up. Before we eat, she stands and raises her glass. She thanks everyone for believing her daughter when initial systems failed to protect her. She thanks Armani for seeing danger that adults missed and taking action despite personal risk. She thanks Detective Hansen for finally taking stalking seriously and building a case that got justice. She thanks Kira for supporting students through trauma that school policies weren't designed to handle. She thanks all of us for creating a community that caught Svetlana when she was falling. Her voice breaks when she says that the coach took a lot from their family. But he didn't win because Svetlana is surrounded by people who fought for her. I look around the table at faces that were strangers 18 months ago and are now deeply woven into my life. This community we accidentally built through crisis feels more solid than friendships I've had for years. We learned together that protection isn't about control. We discovered that reputation doesn't tell the whole story about who someone really is. We proved that young people can create our own safety networks when adults fail us, or systems move too slowly. The coach took Svetlana's innocence and sense of security. He disrupted all our lives and forced us to grow up faster than we should have. But he didn't win the bigger battle because Svetlana is reclaiming her life on her own terms. She's not just surviving anymore, she's actually thriving in ways that seem impossible given what she endured. And she's surrounded by people who will keep fighting for her, for each other, for anyone who needs protection from predators who think they can get away with terrorizing young people. We're not helpless victims waiting for adults to save us. We're a network of people who save each other.